Hello, ako po si Paterno Esmaquel at ito ang Newsbreak Chats. Dito sa Newsbreak Chats, dadalhin namin kayo sa likod ng kamera habang pinag-uusapan natin ang pinakamaiinit na issue sa nakalipas na 2 linggo. Naku, umiinit na naman yung issue sa pagitan ng Pilipinas at China sa West Philippine Sea. Pero kung tutuusin, kailan nga ba lumamig ang isyong ito? Sa ilalim ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Makakasama natin ang reporter na nasa gitna ng pagko-cover ng tensyon na ito at madalas pa nga nasa gitna talaga literal ng dagat. Katulad kanina, si Bea Cupin, ang ating Foreign Affairs and Security reporter. Welcome to Newsbreak Chats, Bea, or welcome back.
Welcome to us.
Welcome back to us, Bea. So,
Yes.
ikwento mo nga, kanina nanggaling ka lang sa isang coverage sa gitna ng dagat at may kaugnayan sa West Philippine Sea.
Yeah. It was a shorter route actually. So, galing Sangli Point in Cavite, sumakay tayo ng Balanghai. So, we'll talk about what the Balanghai is in a bit. Pero so, the Balanghai going to Manila. Ito yung last leg ng Balanghai na ito. Ang pangalan niya ay Balanghai Florentino Das. But before this, so umalis siya ng Butuan in Mindanao, May 27.
Naku, taga-Butuan ka pa naman.
My hometown.
Oo.
So between May 27 until today, so that's almost 15 days of a journey, they went to Pag-asa Island sa West Philippine Sea. Yun yung pinakamalayong, we claim it as a territory, of the Philippines. And then it went to Palawan and then finally to Cavite. May mga stops pa siya in between. And then closing its journey in Manila. So, the Balanghai, if you're not familiar, it's an ancient boat. Kumbaga, ginagamit siya ng Filipinos thousands and thousands of years ago before colonization. So, the point of this journey, according to organizers, is to assert na kumbaga this is the home of the Balanghai, the West Philippine Sea, the South China Sea. And because it's the home of the Balanghai, or it's the natural waters of the Balanghai, therefore it's also the natural waters of the Filipino. And in Pag-asa, nag-medical mission sila, etc. But aside from the medical mission, which is also very important, it's really showing na, again, asserting na civilians, it's a civilian mission, no government coordination at all, in fact, can sail into the West Philippine Sea if they can and if they want to.
Hindi ba delikado yung biyahe na yan, Bea? Sinong kasama mo dyan?
Hindi tayo sumama sa West Philippine Sea talaga na leg kasi it was a long journey for the crew of the Florentino Das. They encountered, they were telling me kanina, yung mga sumama nga, kasama dito, former Undersecretary of DOTC pa dati, and also DNR, si Art Valdez. We also have several familiar names. Ted Esguerra, for instance, si Doc Ted, Jody Navarra was part of is part of the mission. So they did see the flotillas of the Chinese, may mga Chinese maritime militia, China Coast Guard, but for the most part daw hindi naman sila ginambala or hindi sila hinaras, but they did intercept through their radios yung radio challenges of the various Chinese ships. So they were telling us, na when they were in Pag-asa Island daw, ini-illustrate nila habang lumalakbay tayo sa Manila Bay kanina, na sobrang lapit lang daw talaga ng Chinese maritime militia when they were sailing on their way to Pag-asa. Of course, that's not really surprising because we do know na from Pag-asa Island, tanaw na tanaw mo, nakapaligid lang parate. A lot of times, naka-moor or naka-anchor doon yung Chinese maritime militia, and then you'll always have a China Coast Guard ship patrolling the area of Pag-asa Island. So that's not surprising. But thankfully, they were fine. It's a modern Balanghai. So hindi naman to yung old school Balanghai na talagang, syempre thousands of years ago, walang engines yung mga ninuno natin. Hindi naman to bugsay lang talaga na Balanghai. So may engine naman siya. In fact, may aircon sa ilalim ng boat. They had modern day tools at their disposal. Nakita natin, meron silang modern na, they had, of course, a compass. They had modern equipment, radios, of course. But, it's still a wooden boat. But I was talking to the organizers earlier that it's kind of amazing to think how a boat that was constructed thousands or designed thousands of years ago, ginamit ng mga ninuno natin, pre-colonial Philippines to, the ship is still strong enough to sail the West Philippine Sea, the open seas, the high seas to this day, right? So it's kind of amazing. Na parang something so old, or amazing yung engineering feat ng mga pre-colonization Filipinos na naisip nila yan at na-construct nila in that way yung Balanghai.
Dumarami yung mga ganyang efforts no ng mga ordinaryong Pilipino. Yung formal name ng group na ito.
Parang it's a coalition of sorts. You don't really have a single name to call themselves, pero yung mga yung organizations na kasama dito yung Kaya ng Pinoy, which is also a group that actually si former Yusek Valdez din yung nag-organize ng expedition to Everest many years back. So yung narrative ng grupo na to, from the mountains to the sea. But this isn't the first time that they actually spearheaded a Balanghai expedition. So you were saying parang this isn't the first in recent history.
Correct.
But also parang we have to highlight na nag-sail na dati sa open seas yung isang Balanghai. Not this one but previous Balanghais. A month ago or 2 months ago, we had Atenito sailing to Scarborough Shoal, or the vicinity rather of Scarborough Shoal. Months before, Atenito also tried to go to the area of Ayungin. Of course, that convoy unfortunately had to turn back dahil may nakaabang na nga na China Coast Guard. So we've been seeing a lot of, well, at least 2 at this point, right, na mga civilian missions to various areas in the West Philippine Sea. And this is absolutely something that the government wants and supports. Not necessarily as in support na may pera or whatever. It's not that there are government resources being poured into it, but it's something na certainly personnel from the Navy, personnel from the Coast Guard, from the National Task Force of the West Philippine Sea, although depending on the location, they'll sometimes see it a little convincing. But it's something that they appreciate. Because parang yung assertion nga ever since naman is that yes, there are areas of the West Philippine Sea where it's militarized. So we're talking about Ayungin Shoal specifically, where the BRP Sierra Madre is, no? But the rest of the West Philippine Sea, Scarborough is about access to fishing, right? Fishing, this traditional fishing grounds for Filipinos. Pag-asa is home to a civilian population. So it's not, we shouldn't think about it as a military endeavor, right? We should also think about it as freedom of navigation, not just for corporations, kasi parang yun yung parating na highlight na parang conduit of like 1/3 to 1/2 of global trade ng South China Sea. But this is also an assertion na even the regular Filipino, if they want to, if they have the resources to, should be able to sail the West Philippine Sea safely and without harassment.
Pero hindi ba isinusubo ng gobyerno yung mga pangkaraniwang Pilipino sa pagpayag na maglayag sila sa West Philippine Sea?
Yeah. So if you'll notice, parang jumping away from the Balanghai expedition and into the Atenito example, no? Kasi siguro sila yung good example. Kasi yung Ayungin, the NTF-WPS, or the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea, was very hesitant to allow them to enter. And that was primarily because militarized zone na kasi yun. Diba? The BRP Sierra Madre is manned, or yung BRP Sierra Madre ay isang World War II era warship na purposefully run aground in Ayungin Shoal. So it's a militarized zone. So there's more caution when we talk about the Sierra Madre, right? And we, of course, also know na sobrang taas ng tension. It's a flashpoint for tensions between China and the Philippines. So there's extra caution when it comes to the Sierra Madre to Ayungin. In Scarborough, although it is a flashpoint as well for tensions between China and the Philippines, in fact, we've seen parang mas overzealous nga sila, I think, sometimes in Scarborough Shoal, no? There is that notion, this is a civilian zone, right? We are here, or our primary interest so far in Scarborough is access to fishing. So in Scarborough, for instance, the NTF did not say na it approved or disapproved the mission. Kumbaga, do your mission if you want our help. And they did ask for help in that instance, in the form of an escort. So may nag-escort na PCG vessel. Again, yung primary purpose ng PCG vessel is not to lead the way or anything, but it's a lifeline in case something bad happens. to the flotilla of atin ito at the time na puro mga fishing vessels lang, wooden fishing vessels, right? So there's that layer of precaution perhaps. Pero itong Balanghai, ito wala silang, they didn't have a Coast Guard parang assigned to them when they ventured into Pagasa, and thankfully nothing happened. So I think it's also it's a calculated risk as well. Parang siguro you have to be knowledgeable enough to know which areas in the West Philippine Sea would be safer, quote unquote, or less tension. Syempre kung dadaan ka sa Ayungin or lalapit ka sa Sierra Madre, parang you might expect a lot of maybe may swarming or gano'n ng China kasi andun sila parate. So, yeah.
So, bakit mahalaga
Yeah.
na may mga sibilyan
Yeah.
na pumupunta sa West Philippine Sea at hindi na lang yung mga tropa ng Pilipinas?
Yeah. It's parang marami siyang layers. One is also parang again de-emphasizing the militarizedness of the West Philippine Sea. Kasi we always see the headlines in Ayungin, right? Na it's the Unaiza Mays, marami sila 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4 pala, sorry. The Unaiza Mays 1, 2, and 4, although they are civilian ships, yung nakamando doon ay Navy.
Unaiza May is?
Yun ay isang, they call it a indigenous ship na kinokontrata ng Navy to bring supplies to the Sierra Madre. Kasi naging decision yun ng Philippines to stop using gray ships or Navy ships to bring supplies to Ayungin dahil nga sobrang ang taas na ng tensions even before the Marcos administration. Okay. So yeah, parang ano din siya, parang it sounds very trite and corny, but it's this concept of it's a whole of nation approach. No, parang it can't just be naval forces, which is obviously it's not because we have the PCG, a civilian force, patrolling, being present in the West Philippine Sea as best as it can, given its limited resources. But at the same time, parang there's also a need for non-governmental forces. And this isn't just in the form of like these coalitions or these expeditions, right? Part na din dito is encouraging and reassuring our fisherfolk, for instance, na, okay, we understand and we appreciate na parang very aware kayo of the risk, but at the same time, it's also parang, sige, punta kayo doon, the government will support you. And that's been very overt under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., right? Yun yung, or at least sa mga maritime officials, like the PCG says, it's trying as best as it can to increase yung presence nila kasi kahit papano for fisherfolk, right? When they still know na delikado pa rin yun, parang may inherent danger na baka maharas ka, worst case scenario, baka i-confront ka mismo ng China Coast Guard or Chinese Maritime Militia. But them knowing that there is a Coast Guard ship of the Philippines nearby or a naval ship nearby, parang may layer of assurance na parang if something bad happens, I will have my kababayan here to help me out.
Oo. Naalala ko yung article na sinulat ni Isagani De Castro Jr., ang ating senior desk editor about this. And he was quoting Philippine government officials to say that this is about engaged citizenship or something like that.
Yeah, parang,
is there what was the term? Do you remember?
I do not recall the exact term. Pero parang yun din yung, it's been always a call, whatever term that they use, no? To really assert na this should not just be us. Right? This should not just be, kasi it's not ideal, it should not be the Marcos administration asserting this, but it's the Filipino asserting na the arbitral ruling should be followed, right? The rule of law should be followed. Parang, siguro it's also, in a way, parang to show na this isn't just the rhetoric of a president, the rhetoric of an admin that could change, that will change after 2028. But it's also parang, kumbaga, fortifying among Filipinos na the West Philippine Sea is ours based on international law, based on UNCLOS, based on the 2016 arbitral ruling. And it's interesting, naalala ko lang, kasi I was going through recent surveys on the West Philippine Sea. There is always, kung bago kang reporter, assigned ka to defense or to to foreign relations, one of the intimidating parts of this beat, I think, is understanding international law, UNCLOS, 2016 arbitral ruling. So it was quite surprising if you actually look at a survey, I think by Pulse Asia from late last year, one of the top reasons na sinite ng respondents on why it's important to defend the West Philippine Sea, they cited the 2016 arbitral ruling. Right? So parang, in a way, ingrained na rin siya, or unti-unti na rin siyang ingrained in Filipinos. I cannot assure you na they fully understand the whole text. I'm pretty sure not every one of them read the whole decision, right? Pero parang it's interesting that there is already that awareness na our claim or our assertion is not based on what we feel or what we claim to be ours. Like, there is a basis for this claim. So that's quite interesting.
Bea, babalik lang ako dun sa mga civilian missions.
Yes.
And I think to sum up what you said, is it correct to say that the government is now banking on nationalism?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think even the Transparency Initiative, if you think about it, right, exposing China's actions in the West Philippine Sea. And I wrote about this in a recent View from Manila piece na parang there was worry na parang seeing these images every single month. Kasi up until recently, every month may raw emission. So every month we see videos of Chinese harassment. There was worry before na parang kumbaga mawawala yung novelty, na parang people will become accustomed or numb to these images. But I find that people are not, right? There's still some rage. Diba? It's a very gut reaction na when we see na parang inaape yung PCG natin, BFAR natin, yung Unay Zame na kinokontract ng Philippine Navy. There's always that anger na parang binabastos tayo ng China sa sarili nating waters. So that's interesting to me. Na may ganong reaction. And syempre that stirs up feelings of nationalism. And I keep telling people this na the first time na sumampa ako sa isang RORE mission to Ayungin Shoal, yun yung most successful thus far in that nakalapit kami sa BRP Sierra Madre. So we could see it with the naked eye. So it was like 2 nautical miles away or less. The first time I saw I saw the Sierra Madre with my own eyes, medyo small, brown, rusty dot, parang I was emotional. And it was so weird na parang, why am I emotional over a rusting ship? And I think it was also that parang nakita mo yung physical form of what we're fighting for here in Ayungin Shoal. So parang, it's quite interesting.
Let's go deeper into that, Bea, nationalism, because
Yes.
this show airs a day after Independence Day,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to talk about nationalism
Yeah.
in relation to the West Philippine Sea. I remember, Bea, that you used to host a show on Rappler, a podcast
Yes.
about nationalism
Yeah.
and Filipino identity.
Yeah.
Ay, pero mahina ang nationalism ng mga Pilipino, hindi ba? Or mahina, or ano ba? How would you describe it?
I don't think hindi siya mahina, but I think it's also, it's ang corny pakinggan nito, pero it's an ongoing journey of understanding sino ba tayo. That defunct podcast was
What's the title?
Who is the Filipino?
Okay, who is
so
the
it tackled Filipino-ness across all sectors of society. So from gender, from ano ba mga topic noon? From kung ano-anong aspects of Filipino-ness, whatever that is. I think we are, for some reason, and then this could change in the coming months or years or whatever, parang we can disagree on a lot of things, but for some reason, when it comes to the West Philippine Sea, it becomes a gut issue, and it does become a unifying factor across different sectors. With an asterisk, right? There is still, absolutely infighting, disagreements, politics underneath everything, because there always will be. But it's interesting, but I mean, pero hindi rin to totally good thing, na parang stirring up yung nationalistic na fervor. Although, admittedly, it's advantageous to the current administration. So, yeah, parang I think that's also why the West Philippine Sea is a gut issue. Even if you look at surveys, the top concern is still obviously food, job security, price of goods, inflation, mga ganon. Parang malayo yung concern sa West Philippine Sea. But again, the theory is baka kasi Filipinos feel na ina-address naman siya ng admin. So mababa na siya sa priority. And baliktad siya sa inflation, prices of food, job security, parang they feel like hindi pa siya addressed enough. So the way I see it, no, the West Philippine Sea is very much a gut issue in the sense na parang we cannot let this superpower, parang kumbaga, elbow its way through the waters na we are told is ours, we see is ours based on the hindi nga, if you don't even, frankly, even if you don't go through history, no, parang yung lived experiences lang ng fisherfolk natin, na parang dati nakakapunta naman kami doon, but ngayon hinaharang na kami. Diba? Parang you always hear that sentiment, na parang bakit kami pa yung banyag sa sarili naming tubig, parang waters, parang, yeah.
Teka, Bea.
Yes.
Do you think the West Philippine Sea issue has increased the nationalism of Filipinos?
I can't, hindi ko pa siguro, I can't say with confidence that it has, but it has certainly been a rallying point.
Rallying point.
For nationalism, right? And you'll see nga parang there is a lot of, my gosh, unity in standing for the West Philippine Sea, no? So that's quite interesting na you'll see like ate nito is one of the more prominent members of that coalition is Akbayan, right? Na they will still differ with the Marcos administration on a lot of policies, but when it comes to the West Philippine Sea, kumbaga there is a certain alignment that you will see in pushing for the Philippines' interests in that aspect.
Bea, ngayon nag-a-analyze tayo ng West Philippine Sea issue, and siguro napansin na rin ng mga readers natin, lalo na yung mga sumusunod sa mga foreign affairs and security issues sa Rappler, na merong Monday analysis /column /series si Bea sa Rappler. It is called View from Manila.
Yeah.
And in View from Manila, we see analysis like this.
Yeah. Try to make sense of things.
Trying to make sense of things.
Yes.
Siguro, baka pwede mo nga gawing topic itong nationalism for your next View from Manila. Pero, Bea,
yeah.
why did you start View from Manila?
Okay. Well, one is sinabihan ako to start synthesizing it by our boss. Hi, Ma'am Glenda. But I think also, it's like I said, parang, so I handle both defense and foreign affairs for Rappler, which in a different milieu, separate beats yun. But I think now, in the context of the geopolitics in the region, it makes sense na iisa siya. Kasi it's a perfect beat siya actually for the changes in the Philippines also, right? Kasi we're moving towards external defense. We are focusing on the West Philippine Sea. Very assertive ang Marcos administration. At the same time, in its assertion of our sovereign rights and claims in the West Philippine Sea, it's looking to partners, therefore foreign affairs and diplomacy. Dahil ang daming moving parts, a lot of times it's easy to miss the forest and focus on the tree, right? So I think, if I'm gonna be honest, every Monday, sometimes Mondays are easy because like within 2 hours, it's easy to write. Sometimes there are Mondays where I stare at the screen for 5 hours and like rack my brain trying to make sense of things so that our readers are hopefully understand it easier, have a easier time understanding things. Pero yun nga, parang it's a very useful tool personally for me to make sense of everything that's happening. Kasi for instance, kunwari, last week, my gosh, ang dami nangyari sa West Philippine Sea. Within a week, nirelease ng AFP and then ng PCG, yung videos from May 19, so 2 weeks late. Nilabas nila yung videos that of the Chinese trying to intercept an airdrop to BRP Sierra Madre, yung pagharang ng medical mission, ng medical evacuation from the Sierra Madre also. Also on the same week, they announced na parang hinaras din pala yung isang scientific research mission to Escoda Shoal. So parang with all these things happening, and then naglabas ng survey yung Okta Research about 91% distrust in China among the people they surveyed. So parang a lot of things are happening, and parang it's easy to, and we did write about them individually, right? But I think it's useful to tie them all together kasi they don't exist in vacuums, right? Parang 91% distrust in China from a March survey. Bakit nangyari yun?
Kabit-kabit lahat ng
Kabit-kabit
issue.
siya lahat, yes.
Bea, we have a few more minutes left. Let me ask you
Yes.
about why this matters. I mean, for journalism or journalists in general, I mean, why is it important for journalists to learn to connect the dots and to
Yeah.
analyze things,
Yeah.
not see things in isolation,
Right,
the way you do
right.
in View from Manila?
Okay. I wrote one time, and this was one of the days that was thankfully easy to write, The View from Manila. Parang at the end of the day, the West Philippine Sea is a battle of narratives, right? Of course, there's a military component, diplomatic component, pero parang what ties it together, it's narratives. You need to create a cohesive narrative. If you're the Philippines, if you're China, you want a cohesive and sellable and believable narrative, right? Therefore, you'll have all these voices. If you're a reporter covering the West Philippine Sea or diplomacy or
Any other
defense,
topic.
yeah, or any topic, frankly, right? You have all these competing parties, the Philippines, China, third parties or whatever, trying to shape the narrative, create their own narrative, create a separate narrative in their own little vacuum. So parang, I think, and we're going into a bigger story, no? Parang hindi na ito lang just the West Philippine Sea, but journalism in general. Parang the challenge here, amid all the noise, because it is quite noisy, right? It's quite overwhelming. Parang you'll see all these videos that make you angry, and then ma-frustrate ka, ba't di na natin sila i-water cannon back, ganyan. So I think it's always it's that challenge to make sense, parang kumbaga, not bring the tensions down, but at least take a step back and say, okay, this is kasi what's happening. This is what they're saying, this is what we're saying, this is what another person is saying, and just try to make sense of it all. And hopefully start, or at least in the little bubble of Rappler, or the little sphere of influence that Rappler has, parang as a sober conversation, as sober as we can, because it's a very hot and emotional issue, right? For the average Filipino, for government officials, it's very emotional, it's very high stakes nga siya na issue. So parang it's important to try to dial it down by sifting through the noise and trying to present to readers na, okay, this is what you need to know. This is the context that you need to know. So parang to perhaps temper things down a little.
Bea,
Yes.
my last question, in one word,
Yes.
can you describe the role of a journalist in a heated situation like this, in a situation filled with tension,
Right.
especially between two countries or different parties, as in other stories, Bea? In one word, what is the role of the journalist that you are trying to play right now?
Oh, hirap nun, Paterno. View from Manila na naman yung susunod. What is the one word? Pwede bang
Ikaw.
more than one?
O sige.
I think a lot of it is, it's not mediating pero parang it's just, in a way, you're a guide. You're guiding the reader to the best of your ability, right? Kasi hindi naman, again, because you're a guide, you don't see everything, but you do see what's in front of you. And hopefully what you see in front of you is also informed by everything else that you know from your conversations with officials on the record, officials off the record, officials on background. So parang the hope, and this is not just me, to be clear, this is everyone, every journalist in the Philippines. I think the hope is to be the guide na parang, the guide na hindi ka mag-i-impose, sundan mo ko. Parang you have the option to follow me I'll try to help you wade through the mess that is this narrative. Parang ganun.
Thank you, Bea Cupin, Foreign Affairs and Security Reporter and Guide. And for those of you who would love to have extra guidance from Rappler journalists and who would like to have conversations with us and with other followers of Rappler, please download the Rappler Communities app. We have a security and global affairs channel where Bea is very active and she would give you updates and even ask for your suggestions on which topic to feature next in View from Manila. But for now, we have to say goodbye. Till the next episode of Newsbreak Chats, ako po, si Paterno Esmaquel. See you again.